recording, dot, dot, dot. Maybe we are. It looks like we're recording now. Let's see if that works. So last week, how's everybody doing?
Good.
Thank God.
We have a message on top that you are recording. It looks like it's working.
Okay. And hopefully it'll be somewhere you can track down.
We didn't get an email last week, so I didn't know there was a class.
No, we got the email yesterday and today.
So actually last week wasn't recorded, so let's just kind of quickly go over what we did last week. Yeah, which was started by looking at what to do if I'm not happy, if my simcha is interrupted, not by something in the world that's getting me down. Or we know what to do for that. We say that's also for good, even though I don't understand it. Not about guilt, about something that I did in the past, which again, we now know how to deal with it. We don't just down anytime it interrupts our day and get caught up in the guilt cycle. We make an appointment. We have program time to sit down a certain amount of time. We focus on our relationship with God, not in our sins. And when our heart's a little broken, then we get joy from that and we take care of it. But now in this chapter, we're looking at, okay, I'm actually, God willing, here I am, I'm a Bainani, right? One day perhaps. And I'm doing everything properly. I'm thinking everything properly. I'm saying everything properly. But inside, I know I'm still the same weak person, the same flawed person. And day after week after month after year, the same impulses pop into my mind. I push them away. I do the right thing in my thought and in my speech and action, but the same impulses keep popping in, and they might shock me, and they might disappoint me, and they might get in the way of my progress. And isn't it a holy thing to just beat myself up and get depressed about it? And won't that help? And the Alter Rebbe says, no, we always want to function with simcha, with joy. That makes us more effective. That's always the best approach. And here's how you do it with feeling bad over my identity inside, even though it's not affecting my thought, speech, or action. And that is to recognize that it's actually a mitzvah. That it's actually, it's productive work in and of itself. And every time something pops my mind and I direct my mind to the very opposite thing, I fulfill what mitzvah? Someone help me. Where is it? From what?
My mind's not awake. I'm sorry.
What's the mitzvah? When I redirect my mind to something else, I don't follow my eyes. That's what mitzvah.
Distraction?
Oh no, you don't follow your heart. No, that's don't follow your heart. That's in the Shema.
What does it say in the Shema?
That you don't follow your heart because it's going to lead you wrong.
Yeah, so you don't stray after your eyes and your heart. That's exactly a mitzvah in the Shema. And
right.
Can a tzaddik do that mitzvah?
No.
Tzaddik doesn't have to.
Why not?
No, a tzaddik can't do it.
Already there.
Sue Ellen, why can't a tzaddik do it?
Because the tzaddik doesn't have ill thoughts.
Exactly.
He's pure.
So imagine you're a tzaddik. You're sitting there, and there's this one mitzvah you can't do that you're reciting every day in the Shema multiple times, and every time you say it, you just have this feeling of, I don't know what a tzaddik feels when they can't do a mitzvah, but they don't have access to it. They're like, I can't do this mitzvah. And it's on their minds, and they're waiting for someone like me to come along and have an improper or gross or disturbing thought and just do the work and avert my mind from it. And then I've done that mitzvah. It sounds like, Dan, are you there? Dan, did we lose you?
No, I'm here.
It must be those birds.
Somebody got a bird?
We read about in the
I
Nussie.
do. I've got a bird.
Oh, that's an actual
Those
bird.
birds.
Okay.
Yeah, the birds we read about in the Nussie this morning.
That's exactly it. Before I thought it was like some computer noise. I was like worried about it. Now that it's a bird, I'm actually pleased. It's gorgeous.
Okay.
Exactly like the Tanya. It's all in how we look at it. Yeah. Okay, I'm just writing down the order that we're going to read in case. Great. So a tzaddik can't do this mitzvah, is waiting for someone like me to come along, and when I simply think about the opposite of what occurred to me, now I've done a big mitzvah, and not only that, I've corrected a lot of the world, because when I overcome my animal soul's inclination, I actually bash down a lot of the klipa and the sitrata, and that affects the higher spiritual worlds. And God experiences what we call pleasure, and all this divine light flows into the higher world just because I changed my thinking from something counterproductive to productive. So that's our technique. If this is something that happens and you feel like, why can't I change my insides? Know that that's actually productive work, and we can celebrate it, we can be happy with it. Then last week, to catch up, he went over and got a little, maybe perhaps stern, and said, and by the way, if you think, well, shouldn't I be able to overcome this? Shouldn't I eventually be able to correct everything inside and never have a negative thought, or rarely have a negative thought? It's not, the Alter Rebbe says, if you think that, that's really, it's what the word he uses is not vanity, but conceit, right? It's really, you're conceited thinking that this is beneath you for something to occur to your mind that's counterproductive. Really, I'm better than that, because the level better than that is a tzaddik. It's only a tzaddik that can transform their entire anatomy of their soul such that it never has involuntary, hiccups that cough stuff up into your brain. So when I say, really, this shouldn't be happening to me, what I'm saying is, really, I'm a tzaddik. I'm not a rasha like everybody else in the world. And why is it that would occur to me? And I brought in the example of if I were to play baseball with some people in the park, and I hit a nice grounder and got to first base, and I was crying and upset, and my friend came up and said, why unhappy? You got to first base, and it was a good hit. I said, no, I didn't hit a home run that would have gotten out of the park at Comerica Park, and it wasn't a real good hit like I should. They said, what are you talking about? You haven't trained baseball. You're not super athletic. Like, that's not your level. Be happy that you got a base hit. If you think you should be hitting major league home runs, you don't even understand who you are. That's a bizarre statement to make. Same thing here. The statement, I really shouldn't be having these pop up kind of blips in my mind. That's the same kind of statement. It's saying, really, I'm a level of tzaddik. I'm an Olympic athlete. I'm a rare individual, and I shouldn't be, this should be settled by now. I'm beyond this. And that's just not even understanding where I am and how I start working. Does that make sense? So for reading, let's start. My order is Noreen, me, Sue Ellen, Cindy, Dan, Rick, Carolyn, Joey, Maxine. Can we do that?
Why don't you just call on us when you want us to read?
All right, I can do that.
Order.
Democracy plan. Okay, so let's start at the top of 366. We'll quickly go through this. And we did this last week, so let me fast forward it, right?
Wait.
So then
we ended on 367 last week.
Yeah. So the Alter Rebbe brings up the last question that he asked in chapter 1. If you remember, if you're with us with chapter 1 or reviewed on video, we start with a series of questions. We say, the soul is given an oath, be a tzaddik and don't be a rasha. But even if everyone says you're a tzaddik, consider yourself like a rasha. And shouldn't we be? How can we consider ourselves like a rasha? Because shouldn't we serve God with joy? Isn't it a problem if we depress ourselves, and back and forth? All the questions. The last question he asked was, what's the deal with what Job said? You created righteous men, you created wicked men, right? Or you created wicked men, you created righteous men, the other way. And the Alter Rebbe said, how does everything work if that's the case? If I'm created wicked, then it's not my fault that I'm sinning. And if I'm created righteous, then what's the big deal that I'm not sinning and that I'm doing good things? Because you created me, right? I mean, you make a hole puncher, it's no surprise that it punches holes, and you shouldn't expect it to be able to, take videos, right? You're blaming the hole puncher for not taking videos? You created a hole puncher. So it punches holes. That's what it does all its life. It punches holes. So why are you punishing it for not being able to film video, right? If you created us this way, then reward and punishment is pointless. And he answers the question here on 367 that we're not actually created like a rasha, that we're going to do things, thought, speech, and action, that is sinful. He created us like a rasha in that we resemble a Rush on the inside, and that's our identity. It's not going to change. There's people for whom their heart is going to pop things up into their mind, and they have the midot, their internal identity of the soul is a Russia, and it's always going to be struggling, always going to be pushing. And my whole life, I'm going to struggle to always overcome it. But it doesn't mean I ever need to give into it, right? This whole chapter, the Alter Rebbe is talking about a Beinoni who not for one moment volitionally entertains even a simple thought. But don't be surprised, because God created you like this. There's a purpose to this, and you may have to do this and you should celebrate what you're accomplishing. Yeah. So now we're caught up. Let's start from 367. So we'll catch everyone up who wasn't with us last week. Go ahead, Noreen.
The implication of Job's statement is not that they were created to actually be wicked, God forbid, that is, sinful in thought, speech, and action.
Oh, we have participants that are not video. Hold on. How do I find you guys? If you're not, I don't see you. If you're not on video, can you announce yourselves?
Doreen, it's just Doreen doesn't have video.
Doreen?
Okay, but
Yeah.
that, can you hear me? But that there should occur to them in their thoughts and musings alone, that which occurs to the wicked. That is, that evil thoughts should enter their mind as they do in the mind of the wicked.
Very good. Thank you, Doreen. Sorry, I didn't see your picture, so I'm more aware you're here. Thank you. Yeah, so this is the idea. We're not actually going to think about, speak about, or do something, but it'll occur to us, just like a wicked person. Go ahead,
And they shall eternally wage war to avert their minds from them in order to subjugate the Sitra Achra.
So that they'll just do that for good, right? God created me a hole puncher because pages need punching, right? And they don't want to walk into the office having to punch holes, and now I've decided I'm not a hole puncher, now I'm something else, right? No, I need you to punch holes. Every time it's needed, you do it, right? So that's who we are as potential Beinonim, is when we subjugate, when we subdue our improper inclination, we actually are doing productive work in and of itself that we should celebrate. And like we said several times, do I feel good about it? Do I feel it's romantic? Do I feel like I'm such a noble, holy person? Maybe not. That I had that thought again and that I pushed it away. But it's perfect, because that's not about me, right? It's my ego that's upset that I'm not doing holier, more lofty, more beautiful work, that I'm just keeping my mind in check. But to God, that gives God pleasure. So who am I thinking of? My pleasure or God's pleasure? And that's always the touchstone of the Alter Rebbe, right? That sometimes something that feels very, very Jewish and very, very noble, I might be doing it because I want to prop up my ego, and something that feels kind of crummy, that really might be the work of my divine soul. Hi guys.
Oh, hi. I'm a little late. Sorry.
Hi, Mary Jane. You made it.
Oh, it's a long story. I've got another cell phone. Hi, everybody.
Hi.
Hello.
Hi,
Good morning.
hi.
Good morning.
Carry on. Thank you.
Who?
Ellen, please.
Okay. Yet they will never be able to annihilate the Sitra Ahara in their souls completely, for this is accomplished by the Tzadakim.
Tzadikim, yeah. So, okay, I'm upset that it's not stopping, that the whatever thought's always knocking on my mind and I keep the door shut. I'm being upset that I'm not at tzaddik, so give me a break, right? I think I can put that upset to rest because, right, I'm not at tzaddik. That's pretty normal. Now we get to a beautiful mashal, a beautiful example, for those of us that want something more physical to latch onto here. And he brings out a quote when Yitzchak was talking to Esav, and he said, you know, I want to give you a blessing, so go hunt something and cook it the way I like, delicacies that I like. He uses the plural, delicacies, right? And the Alter Rebbe says, why was it in plural when it was just one meal, the dish that Esav was making? It's plural because there's really two kinds of delicacies, of beautiful, tasty food that bring God pleasure. We're going to see that the tzaddik is one of them, and the Beinoni is the second kind. And although the delicacy that the Beinoni is preparing might seem at first to be counterintuitive, then in fact it's a beautiful kind of pleasure that is even higher in some aspects. Go ahead, Cindy.
There are two kinds of divine pleasure.
Right, so now that we know we're talking about God's pleasure and God being satisfied and really enjoying that we're doing our work as Rashas or Beinanim and subduing the negative side, I'm going to say there's actually two kinds, right? God takes pleasure from both Tzadikim and Beinanim. Echad mibitul hasitra achra legamre v'ithapcha mimriru lemitka umechashocha linhora al yedei hatzadikim. Go ahead, Dan.
One from the complete annihilation of the Sitra Achra and the conversion of bitter to sweet and of darkness to light, the former referring to the emotional faculties of the animal soul and the latter to its mental faculties, which is accomplished by tzaddikim.
Oh, this is interesting to note. The former are the emotional faculties of the animal soul. And the second is the mental faculties. Yeah. At another point in the book, he points out that, and this is interesting, a little spoiler alert, that a Beinoni can't transform their emotional faculties. It's stubborn, there's too much Klipa in there. But a Beinoni actually can fully transform their mental faculties. That if you really work at it and meditate and pray and learn Torah, that even if you're not a tzaddik, you can do that process of completely refining the aspects of your animal soul in Chokhmah, Bina, and Dat, for those that were here for the kabbalistic section. So the intellectual attributes of your soul, those actually are transformable, refinable for people like us, if we really work hard at it. The emotional aspects, not so much. So he brought that in here, although I'm not sure that's exactly the main point we're making here. So let's go on.
Wait, Cantor, it's Carolyn. I have a question. Is it okay? Is this a good time?
Yeah, of course.
Okay, I guess I'm a little confused when we're talking about that the emotional aspects of humanity are not as useful. But don't you feel like that's a lot of times your emotions? Is it possible that those emotions are what can lead a person to do good things, even as opposed to just their intellect?
Yeah. So I hear what you're saying, and let me clarify my statement. Mm-hmm. I didn't mean to say that the emotional aspects are not as useful as the intellectual aspects. Mm-hmm. What we're talking about here is the ability to fully transform them to be other-centered, right? So mm-hmm. the ability to change every emotional inclination I have to only care about and only have feelings about and only be worried about and only have fear or love about things that involve helping other people around me and things that are taking care of those around me and not being self-centered. Mm. That's very difficult because my emotional world is quite naturally self-centered. So I can work at it, but it's going to be hard to fully 100.0 to infinity, right? 100% to transform them. That we're learned in this book is actually beyond the capabilities of almost everyone, right? So we can channel it, and the emotions definitely drive us to do good things. You're right? So they're important. We want to use them. We don't want to squelch them. We want to direct them properly. But we shouldn't expect that everything that I feel all day is automatically going to be for the best, right? If I'm at tzaddik, that's the case. At tzaddik, every feeling they have is a productive, other-centered feeling. There's no internal agenda. There's no subconscious thing driving them that they should sit down and say, well, is this feeling really genuinely about helping the other person, or am I just trying to prop myself up, etc., right? That's what we mean. That transformation of self-centered to other-centered that is not genuinely possible 100% in the emotions is actually possible in the intellect. That's the point he's making. This is new to all of us. We haven't touched this point yet.
Well, you kind of touched it when you said that the intellect drives the emotions as opposed to the kids driving the car, the crazy one.
Yeah, but I always want to be careful of the intellect. It might be the intellect of the animal soul as well.
Of the animal soul, right? Trying to get us to do a mitzvah, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So when I have an idea, I still want to examine that idea and say, am I thinking this because I need it, or am I thinking this because it's for somebody else, right? I want to examine.
Not me, but other-centered.
Yeah. So that transformation of being able to really refine your intellect so that basically now everything that occurs to your mind is about how can I help someone else? How can I serve God? How can I improve the world? That's actually possible for a Beinoni. A Beinoni might get there.
Really?
But the things that are going to pop up out of their heart, that they may struggle with their whole life.
Okay.
Very good question, Carolyn. Thank you.
Thank you.
The second, והשני, תד התקפיה הסטרא אחרא, בעודה תקפה וגבורתה מגביה עצמה כנשר. We're at Dan.
Dan just read it, right?
Dan just read.
I just read.
I think it's me. And the second, when the Sitra Achra is subdued while it is still at its strongest and most powerful, soaring like an eagle.
Oh, okay, yeah. Now I understand what the comment was about. Good. Right, so there's two kinds of divine pleasure. One is when the animal soul is completely transformed, be it the emotions or the intellect, when it's pure. And that gives God pleasure to say, oh, look at that tzaddik, look at Moshe, look at Abraham, look at Sarah. Everything they do is just exactly what I put them in the world to do. There's no agenda. They're all about me. They're just transparent to what I want, and it gives me such pleasure. And it's a beautiful, sweet pleasure. It's just all perfect and positive. It's like, it's made for the tongue, right? It's automatic sweetness. The second kind of pleasure is not the transformation of the animal soul and the Sitra Achra. It's actually when the Sitra Achra is powerful, seeing that Sitra Achra get knocked down. Right? It's like, if you have to blow your nose or something, and it's on everybody's mind, right? And you don't have access to something, and you finally get to washroom and you get something, you blow your nose, like, what satisfaction, right? Or an itch, right? When something's built up, and it's a problem, and now you see it get solved, you're like, finally, right? Now the air conditioning's working. It gives me such pleasure, right? So
like when you lose something. Like when you lose something and you know where it is and you can't find it.
Well, when you lose something,
find it.
You can't stop thinking, where is it? Where is it? You're running around here and there. It's a problem. And when you find it, now you get a pleasure from that, right? Which is a different pleasure than having everything in its place and knowing where everything is and everything is organized. That's one pleasure. The other pleasure is when things are chaotic, actually solving something. So you find the example that speaks to you, you get it. So that is, as we'll learn, that is the Beinoni. Because the Beinoni might have a powerful, raging animal soul that's always emotionally trying to express itself. And that's, the Sitra Achra is just soaring like an eagle spiritually, is the corresponding reality in the spiritual world. But the Beinoni is always just knocking it down. Every time God sees it, God's like, yes, there's my key, right? I found him. Yeah? Mishnah Morida Hashem Aruta Diltata Al Yedei HaBeinoni. Carolyn, please.
I apologize. I do not have the text in front of me, but I will next time.
Maya, have you got Carolyn's email?
I think Maya's offline.
Okay.
Do you hear me?
It was in the email from last week.
Who do I need to send the files?
Carolyn Herman.
Let's see if I have. Did you got my email yesterday?
But if she's on the computer with
morning.
this, with the Zoom, how can she get the text?
You know what? I
Right.
think I found it. We're talking.
It was
it's
last
on
week's
YouTube.
email that you had it in.
Okay.
Also this week.
This
Tanya,
week too? Okay.
Right, we're in chapter 27.
you got to have two computers running.
I have a phone here. But, I'm
Okay.
sorry, I still can't find it. I don't want to take up a lot of time.
I will email you now.
Okay, thank you. I'm sorry.
Is it my turn?
Let us know so you can join the readings as well.
Yeah, I will.
Don't go ahead. And from this height,
Who is it, me?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. From this height, God topples it in response to human initiative, which means as a result of one's efforts of subduing the Sitra Achra in his soul, this is accomplished by Benoni.
makes sense. So we got two types of pleasure God has. One is the tzaddik that always thinks the right thing, always says, always does, always has the emotions in the correct way, always has intellectual flow the right way, just perfect, and God loves it. And then you got the flawed individual, the struggling individual that still overcomes it and knocks down their negative energy, and God loves that too. It's a different taste. It's a different type of delicacy, as we're about to see. V'zeu shamar hakatuv, baseli mat amim kasher ahavti. We're at Maxine, please.
This is alluded to in the verse, and make me delicacies such as I love.
And so now he brings up Jacob talking to Esau. And Jacob says, make me delicacies like I love. And you're like, well, you're hunting one animal, making one dish. Why is it plural? What's the hidden meaning? It's talking about these two types of delicacies that God loves. And especially, sorry, it is Yitzchak, not Jacob. I don't think I said Jacob. It's Yitzchak, obviously. Yitzchak is the father, and he's... this is all a parable for God's relationship with humanity and all the spiritual levels. So it's not just a stretch to say, why do you say plural delicacies? Oh, it's because it's God. Everything about these stories of the forefathers and foremothers in the Bible, it's all talking about, on higher levels, God's relationship with us. So very, very deep when the author of it says, the reason it's plural is because of these two types of delicacies that we, as it were, prepare for God. Ma tamim lashon rabim shnei minei nachat ruach. Go ahead, Maxine, please.
Where the word matamim, delicacies, is written in the plural, indicating two kinds of pleasure.
Right, so it's plural, talking about both these divine pleasures we just described. V'hu mamar hashchina levaneha kalut Yisrael ki bershu batikunim. We're at Mary Jane.
Oh, and I'm empty. Next
Okay.
time.
Doreen?
These words are the charge of the Shekhinah to its children. The community of Israel is explained in the Tikkunei Zohar that with these words, God asks of the Jewish people to please him with their divine service.
Okay, Doreen, why don't you go next? Noreen,
Oh,
yes.
I'm sorry.
Doreen, Noreen. It's on the computer, they're the same name almost, so.
Okay.
So it's what Yitzhak said to Esau. It's also with the Shekhinah, what God's aspect of Malchut says to Knesset Yisrael, to the entire souls of the people of Israel, as explained in the Zohar. Says, please make me delicacies. I created you, I put you in the world, I gave you this option, this beautiful experience of having a life in a body. Now go and make me delicacies, give me pleasure. So Doreen, would you read that for us?
Just as with material food, there are two kinds of delicacies.
Right, so just as in the spiritual, in material food, there are two kinds of delicacies. So he's going to describe now. Is someone asking a question? No. So just as in when we're making delicacies like desserts, there's the kind that are naturally sweet. There's the kind that are naturally tasty, like honey, right? Or bananas. Honey comes from nature and you taste it, it's sweet. And I can take it and make honey cake, I can take bananas, I can make banana cream pie, and it's sweet from the beginning. It's naturally sweet. It's wonderful, and we love it, right? There's a second kind of delicacy where you take something that's not sweet naturally, but it's actually very sharp or sour or bitter, and you spice it and prepare it in certain ways and mix it and work it. And really, often you process it quite a bit until it creates something that's also a delicacy. Like, who could think of an example of that?
Lemon meringue pie.
Very good. Lemon meringue. You take the life gives you lemons.
Take a sour lemon.
Work them and you squeeze them and you whip and you put in the cornstarch and the sugar and you get this beautiful pie that tastes so good. But it's something good that there's this lemon taste that now is sweet, right? There's a different kind of pleasure that the lemons are making a dessert. And I'll point out that, one of the most obvious examples people pick when they're discussing this chapter is like the sweet stuff, like chocolate, But it's so ubiquitous. You love chocolate so much. Has anyone had a raw chocolate bean, a cocoa bean?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
carob, yeah.
Right?
Yes.
Not so sweet.
No, it's bitter. You've never heard of it. It's a terrible, spicy, bitter thing. And yet, the favorite chocolate in the world, favorite dessert rather in the world, is chocolate this, chocolate that. We think of it as a sweet thing, and we love it.
Yeah.
It started off being something quite horrible and bitter, and by grinding it and processing it and working it and cooking it and sweetening it, now we make something that really we just crave. We love it. So that's the mashal for us. When a tzaddik does their thing, God's like, yes, honey cake. Of course, honey, make a cake. I love it. Bring it to me more and more. But when a Beinoni or even a Rasha subdues their natural inclination and works at it and sweetens it and pounds it into dust, so to speak, and then that is brought to God, that's like, that's chocolate, right? That's the lemon meringue pie. That's beautiful. And a tzaddik can't make that dessert. There's two kinds of delicacies. A tzaddik is bringing the honey cake, and we're bringing the lemon meringue pie. And God likes both. We both have a place at the table. I got Rick to smile.
Talking about pie, what do you expect?
Oh, that's next thing you know, there's going to be like egg white hoarding going on. Everybody wants to make lemon meringue pie. Where did I stop?
One of sweet. Echad.
ממלאכים ערבים ומתוקים, השני מדברים חריפים או חמוצים. Before we go on, is there anyone that I'm not seeing that wants to read? We're good? Everybody's good? Going twice? All right, let's go on. Sue Ellen, go ahead.
One of the sweet and luscious foods and the other sharp or sour articles which are unpleasant to eat in their natural state.
Right. So you got your naturally sweet foods, and then you got the foods you got to really work at, bring out the deliciousness. רק שהם מתובלים ומתוקנים היטב עד שנעשו מעדנים להשיב הנפש.
But have been well spiced and prepared, so they become delicacies which revive the soul. So too are there two kinds of spiritual delicacies.
Yeah, why don't you go ahead with the note? One is?
It won't. I can't.
One is provided by Tzaddikim, who are.
I just, because I touched it, I lost the page.
Oh.
Go ahead.
Yeah, Joey, why don't you help us there? One is
provided by Tzaddikim, who are occupied solely with matters that are good and sweet, holy matters, having conquered the evil of their animal soul. They no longer need grapple with the Sitra Achra. Their divine service consists of increasing the light of holiness. The second kind of delicacy is provided by Beinoni, who are occupied with bitter matters, with battling against the Sitra Achra in their soul and with evil thoughts that it spawns.
Okay.
Make sense?
Yeah.
Yep.
So another piece for us to hang our hat on, and picture that we're, you know, if I'm upset at myself that I had that thought 3 times today and I'm trying to get that to quiet down, okay, but I did redirect my mind, and that sent a nice chocolate what do you call those little ball things that they make? The chocolate
Ruffles?
Truffle. Oh, talking about sweet stuff, Rick. Rick.
Oh,
When it comes to chocolate, I'm your expert.
keep going.
Ah,
זהו שאמר הכתוב, כל פעל השם למענהו וגם רשע ליום רעה. We're at Cindy.
This is indicated in the verse, the Lord has made everything for his sake, even the wicked for the day of evil.
This is from Proverbs. If you look at that line just on its surface, what we call pshat, then we say, why did God make bad people, bad phenomena? Why? Because there's a concept of reward and punishment and right and wrong and free will. And for that to make sense, the world has to have ways of punishing someone when they've done something wrong, and consequences. And if you don't have anything evil in the world, how is God going to manage to punish people when they need correction? So even a person that walks around always yelling at people, Russia, they actually have a purpose, because one day I'm gonna need correction, and God's gonna say, how do I get Small Ash yelled at today? So he realizes he did something wrong and he corrects himself. Oh yeah, I got that Russia. I'll have them meet. The Russia will yell at Small Ash, and that's exactly what needs to happen. The Russia is serving my purpose. I created the Russia for that, right? And let's not get into the moral ethics of, you know, right, free will right now, but that's the basic meaning of that, is that even something that's evil actually has a purpose, because sometimes God needs to punish, and that's God's instrument. The Alter Rebbe goes much deeper than that. He says, no, that we're not looking at this, oh my God, that's a cute dog. Can we have a dog break? What's the dog's name?
Mocha? Micha Mocha?
Oh,
Mika Mocha.
we were talking about chocolate and coffee. Coffee's the other one, right?
No, Mitzvah.
Mitzvah.
My
Oh,
other dog.
mitzvah.
Mhm.
He or she?
She.
Oh my God. My family so wants to get a dog. And
Oh,
that's
you should.
what breed is she?
They're poodles. Here's the other one. Oh, where are you? Where? Here. There's the other one.
Oh, double
He won't
chin.
sit still. Oh, stay still. There.
You should write some Hasidus on like how the animals are so cute, and that tells us like how endearing the animal soul is or something. Look at that little thing.
Say hi. Okay.
Okay, so we're going deeper.
You can rent my dog.
We can.
Yes.
Yeah, I'll rent my dogs out.
I'll take you up on that.
Okay, yeah, no,
I'll
Rose
give
is a
you
therapy
mine.
dog.
Netter.
Yeah, no, I'm not giving her away, just
Okay.
rent her.
Renting. Herush.
Oh.
Yom or Lamala means Dan.
This means, however, that he should repent of his evil and turn his evil into day and light above.
Right? So instead of saying that an evil person or even a vanity was created for their Rasha tendencies so that God could punish things, saying, no, I created evil, Liyom, for light, for day, for transformation, right? Day here represents like transformation in a small way or historically even in a big way, right? So I created the evil person for the light that they bring out of their evilness, right? So that's really again showing that there's a certain beauty and a certain productive light that we bring with our being created like a Russia that is very valuable to the world, and again that we should be happy and celebrate every time we accomplish our work of subduing it.
I have a question.
When the Sitra Aqua is subdued and the glory of God is uplifted on high.
Yes, Noreen, what's your question?
My question is that the same thing what you just said about evil and good and so on? That evil is there to contrast the good so you know what the good is? Is that the same thing as what you're saying?
I think that's also very true, but that's not what I was saying. I was saying,
Okay.
yeah, I was saying the superficial meaning that seems to be that it's reward and punishment, and sometimes the person has to be punished or have consequences. Usually you need a person with evil tendencies to go ahead and trick them, steal from them, hit them, yell at them. So there's a certain purpose to having people in the world that will agree to do that. But your point is very well taken too, that another purpose of having evil in the world is to contrast, so you know what good looks like, because otherwise we can't identify it. Very good. I'm not sure if we want to go on to the next point. The next point's a beautiful, it's a nice exercise actually. But let me just tell a mashal that I think also helps with this, an example, a story, and that is normally when we talk about the Yetzer Hara, Yetzer Tov, we talk about them in terms of what they're going to actually get me to do, right? And the reason I want the Yetzer Tov, the good inclination, to win, is because then I'm going to do productive things. I'm going to do mitzvahs, and I'll be rewarded, and I'll be a good Jew, and that's great. But the benefit is the mitzvahs that I'm going to do. And if the Yetzer Hara wins, if my self-centered inclination wins, my evil inclination wins, I'm going to do bad things. I'm going to hurt people. I'm going to be punished, and I'm going to lower myself. And for all these reasons, I want the Yetzer Tov to win, so that I do mitzvahs and I don't do bad things. And that's the simple, basic, traditional way of looking at it.
Can you ever think of doing bad things as a good thing?
How do you mean?
Stealing bread because you need it.
Sounds like Les Miserables.
Yeah.
So now you're talking about the complexity of the world. So
but in your mind, can it be thought of and rearranged as a good thing because you do a bad deed?
Yeah. So the world is gray, and we have to figure it out. And if I believe something is the right thing to do because a child is starving and stealing to save a life is my only option, then I'm categorizing that as a good thing. It's just complex because the world is complex, right? If I have two friends that are fighting for years, and I go and I lie to them and say they both want to make up even when they don't, I'm sitting and making up, and now there's unity. So that's a good thing, even though I lied.
Okay.
Good. The world is complex, and sometimes something that is good appears maybe gray, right? But inside, it's one or the other, right? I'm either doing the thing because I want to do it for my own pleasure, or I'm doing it because it's helping someone else. And there's much less gray. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But can it be both, Cantor? I mean, you can do something for yourself that benefits other people. For example, going to medical school, becoming a famous neurosurgeon or whatever. You're benefiting, separating conjoined twins all over the globe. I mean, can it be both?
Yes, absolutely. But that's when we're looking at the model of, as long as I'm doing good things. And so if I enjoy doing a good thing, what's wrong with that, right?
Yeah.
That makes sense, because my Yetzer Tov won. I'm doing mitzvahs. I'm separating conjoined twins. I'm helping people. And if I happen to feel good about myself along the way, what's wrong with that? I make some money along the way. What's wrong with that, right? I mean, it all works together. I'm serving the world. But our work here is actually, we're going to a much more subtle level, right? And the Alter Rebbe is now saying that difference, whether, to use your example, Carolyn, whether I'm going to medical school purely 100% because there's ill people that need my help and I have the skills to do it, so I'm going to commit myself to it. And that's the only thing on my mind. That's my only emotion. There's no shade of self-interest of wanting to have good income or the prestige of being a doctor or even the self-satisfaction that comes from helping someone else, even that subtle self-interest. Am I doing it completely for other people, or am I doing it because it's feeding my own
Bless
ego?
you.
And that battle between those two, that in and of itself is spiritual work, right? And that, to get back to our text, that's what we're looking at here. It's not that I want the divine soul to overcome the animal soul, because then I'm going to do mitzvahs and become a doctor and help people, or whatever mitzvah we're talking about. Even if I'm talking about neutral stuff, I still want, every time the divine soul actually suppresses the animal soul, that in of itself is spiritual work. And so we should see it as something that is productive, and we should celebrate it.
Okay, but then, you know, I mean, speaking for myself, I feel like what I have to do, it's a lot of work, you know, to try to become a better person. It's a huge amount of work. And like, so what is the incentive down the road? So if I become a doctor and whether I do it for the right reasons or the wrong reasons, but good comes out of it, like what do I get? Like, what's the you know, the apple or whatever at the end of the road that a person gets to incent them to embark on this process?
That's such an interesting question, right? Because that's exactly it. You put your finger on it, right? If there's an apple at the end of the road, that apple is for the animal soul, right? And so every chapter in our book is about the struggle between the divine soul and the animal soul, right? The author started our book by saying, like Chaim Vital says, the famous student of the Arizal, the most famous Kabbalist, every Jew has two souls, a divine soul and an animal soul. And the struggle between those souls is not always a struggle between doing something that is good and doing something that is bad. It's like you're saying, the animal soul can do amazing things and help the world, right? So I can work for years and years and help thousands of people, and that could be my animal soul doing it because I have an apple and I like doing it. Something motivated me, and I did great things. We're not talking about the struggle between doing good things and not doing good things. We're talking about two people that are both only doing good things, right? They're only doing good things, but one of them is doing them easily without needing an apple. The other one is always having to struggle to make themselves do it. And we're saying, in a way, the person that's doing it naturally with no struggle, it was easy, they're a tzaddik, they're missing the advantage that the person who struggles and is wondering, there's no apple here, it's hard to do every day, right? That struggle is actually creating joy for God. And that's how we're reframing it. Does that kind of speak to what you're saying?
That's a great answer. Thank you.
Very good.
Yeah, I mean, basically everything we're doing, studying Torah, is not for us, but to get us closer to God, and because God wants us to do it.
Yeah, and I mean, I enjoy doing this. I love this class. I love learning about this stuff and hearing these questions. But, you know, when that's the case, there's a little bit of work for me to do to say, well, hold on, am I doing this class because I love it? Or am I doing it because, you know, God wants us to learn Torah, right? So here's the mashal that actually speaks to all these questions. And I'll tell two, actually. There's two that are related, right? There's one well-known story about a prisoner who was in jail for decades and decades. And this is not, you know, one of our modern jails where you can get a university diploma, perhaps. You know, old-fashioned, you know, Russian jail. They were in a terrible cell in terrible conditions. And for 10 hours a day, they had a wheel, a heavy wheel they had to turn. Back-breaking labor for 10 hours a day. And for decades and decades, this prisoner turned this, never seeing what was behind the wall of their cell. The prison guards told them, outside your cell, there's a mill. There's a wheat mill. And all the villages around the jail come and have their wheat ground. And when you turn it, you're helping feed villages all over the area. And so this prisoner survived decades of back-breaking labor turning this wheel. Finally was released after decades in jail.
I can't hear.
Who's that?
Mary Jane.
Are you fixing your sound, Mary Jane?
We can hear you.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so if you miss something, we will post it so you can review anything you miss. So finally, when the prisoner was let out, the first thing he did was go around and look at the other side of the cell wall. And much to his chagrin, there was just a big rock hanging there, loose in the air with nothing to it, right? All those years and years of work had just been turning this rock that accomplished nothing. And although the prisoner had survived decades of back-breaking labor in jail and had just been let out, seeing this reality shocked him so much he had a heart attack and died right there. Died right there. And why is it? Because you can survive back-breaking labor if you think it has a purpose. If you think you're helping something, if you think you're doing something, if you know you're accomplishing the most difficult task, we can get joy from it, we can get through it, it can have meaning in our lives. The worst thing is thinking, I'm struggling, and this backbreaking labor and this confinement is for nothing. And so if I see my internal struggle as being
It's
just
still
this
there.
big rock that I'm turning for no reason, life is going to be hard. There's no reason to be happy. If I recognize what the Alter Rebbe is saying, there's purpose to this. I'm helping, I'm creating. Now, no matter what, God forbid you have troubles, but no matter what my internal struggle is, okay, here's one more bag of flour for someone that's going to feed their family. Fine, good. Am I in jail? Is it hard? Am I sweaty? Is romantic? No. But I'm doing something. I'm getting through, and I'm going to celebrate. Right, the Alter Rebbe told the story of. It just jumped out of my mind. The Alter Rebbe.
How'd you get that?
Oh yeah. There's an interesting mashal. Also, it's a parable, right? I don't believe they're real things that happen, but there was this nobleman, this prince, was riding down in their very fine carriage, and they were riding across a field, and they saw a peasant farmer, harvesting the wheat with a scythe, right? With what do you call it? It's scythe, right? And the peasant was so graceful and athletic and balanced, and every time he swung the scythe, it just was a perfect arc. Such grace. The prince stopped his carriage and just watched for 10, 15 minutes this peasant harvesting this wheat so beautifully, and was just captivated. It was like ballet. And so the prince asked his assistant to get out of the car and speak to the peasant, and the assistant went and said, "Excuse me, peasant, but how many hours a day do you have to work?" The peasant says, "Oh, 9 hours a day." And the prince says, "How much do you make for your work?" And the peasant says, "I make a ruble." So the driver says, "Well, my master, the prince, would like to have you work only 5 hours a day and will pay you 2 rubles. How does that sound?" And the peasant was very thrilled. "Great, I get 4 more hours back not working, and I make twice as much money. You got a deal, right?" So the driver said, "This is what I need. I can send a carriage. I'm going to bring you to the prince's palace, and all you have to do is stand in the courtyard and do exactly what you're doing. He thinks it's so beautiful. He wants to be able to enjoy it. And if you stand and swing your scythe 5 hours a day, and then go home, you'll make double the money, less time, perfect." So the peasant shows up on the first day and stands for 5 hours swinging the scythe, and then goes home. Shows up a second day, same thing, and then goes home. 4 more hours, twice the money. Third day, the peasant shows up. At the end of the day, the peasant says, "You know what? I'm sorry, but I quit. I quit." And the prince is shocked when he hears this. He goes to the peasant and says, "Isn't this so much better? You're working half the time. You're not out in the sun. You're not having to schlep the wheat around. You're making twice the money. Why on earth would you quit?" The peasant says, "I'm not seeing the fruits of my labor. I'm not seeing what I'm producing." Right? And there's a certain pleasure in knowing that my struggle is producing something. So again, these stories are here to teach us that this is a beautiful, beautiful reframe. Yeah, and what our chapter is looking at is this struggle of trying to transform who we are inside, and it keeps kicking back, and it keeps fighting, and I keep subduing it. I need to know how beautiful the effect is and how much light I bring into the universe when I do this, when I fulfill this injunction to not follow after that shtus, after that mind and heart, eyes and heart stuff. And instead, I direct. I say, you know what? I'm going to do it because I know it's right. I'm going to think of something else. Any questions on that? I just want to talk a little about Pesach is coming up. We're good?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
So I have a question. Is that one way to really look at the situation we're in right now? I mean, this isolation is really difficult for some of us.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And how do you reframe that?
Well, I mean, just medically, obviously, we're isolating, for a purpose.
Granted. I mean,
Right.
I'm not debating the isolation or the need for it.
Yeah.
It's just that internal struggle of trying to maintain some sense of positivity amid all the isolation.
I would reframe it exactly this way, right? I might wake up and my mind, starts thinking, oh my God, another day in the house, another day with the kids, another day with no this and no that, and can't, right? And my mind wants to go there.
Right.
And I say, I have a choice. I can have that thought, and then you know, okay, maybe it's accurate that this is not what we're used to, but you know what? It's not the thought I need to have. And it's you know, I don't know if it's a sin, depending on where it goes, but I'm not being joyful, right? So if every time I redirect it, I say, that's not just me trying to make the best of things. That's me actually being productive and serving God with joy in what I'm doing rather than stress. Now that adds a layer of meaning to what I'm doing. And you know, keep on top of that we believe God never sends us a struggle that we can't overcome. So, you know, if I'm on week 3 or week 6 or wherever we're at, and I feel like this is just too much for me, I should know that I have much more resources than I realized at that point. And good, this is an opportunity to dig and find those resources. Yeah. So I think.
Well, yeah, I know personally. I mean, there's been a lot more learning, a lot more interacting now through Zoom and all these other things at this time when we're stuck at home, and it definitely brings so much light into the darkness that we're feeling.
Yeah. Does that ring true to you, Cindy? What do you think?
Yeah. Yeah. It's you know,
It's another day of not having to worry about those at the hospital and going there.
Yeah, right.
You're keeping yourself safe and letting the doctors do their thing without having to worry about one more.
Yeah, exactly, Ellen. This is really what's happening physically in the world is very much what we're discussing, which is reaching our struggle of staying home and staying in place and doing the right thing. We know it's for a greater good, right? So so just connecting the dots and saying, yeah, I'm sitting here, you know, not going out, but I'm being productive. I'm helping the community, you know, pass through this virus safely.
And learning Torah.
Amen. So Wednesday we have our first Seder, and last year I remember we gave out matzah, and it was really nice. I can't get matzah physically right now. I just want to remind you of what we talked about last year about what the matzah represents, and that is exactly what we're talking about here: is nullification of the ego. Nullification of the ego. So where bread, the dough puffs up and has bubbles and air, and it looks much bigger than it really is because it has all that fluffy air inside. And it's kind of delicious and gratifying. With matzah, none of that's allowed in. It's all just flat. And it's what you see is what you get. This is just the dough cooked, right? There's no air in there at all. There's no moisture. It is what it is. So while matzah is a nice commandment and tradition, psychologically and spiritually, it's a symbol of us nullifying our ego and getting ourselves just other-centered and transparent as much as possible. And beyond being a symbol, we believe it actually is a resource. Like especially the matzah that you eat on the Seder night. Like if you're just having, you know, matzah in the morning, you know, with your breakfast during Passover, that's fulfilling a commandment. It's great, and it, you know, we do that. But specifically, eating matzah on the Seder, that you have to do, right? I can go through the rest of Pesach and not eat matzah. As long as I don't eat chametz, I'm good. I fulfilled the holiday. But if I don't eat matzah at the Seder, I'm missing something. So just please keep in mind, when you have matzah at your first and second Seder, if you have a second, that's a tool to allow us throughout the year to do exactly what we're saying. To look at every situation and say, how can I take my ego out of this? How can I be even more transparent? How can I be even more other-centered? And maybe it's in a very subtle way. Or maybe I'm still doing something very positive, but I'm doing it in an even more altruistic way. So when you have that matzah, please think of our class and think of that being able to harness that ability. And just one little halachic technical thing. I know a lot of us have our Seders like at normal dinner time. But by Kabbalah, if you're into this stuff, like there are certain spiritual realities that start to flow into the world at certain times that have to do with the stars and the sun. And Wednesday night in our area, nightfall is at 8:37, sunset's at 8:08. So really, if you have your Seder kind of 6 to 7 kind of thing, it might be worth just taking some matzah, and around 9:30 or 10, saying a blessing, eating a nice chunk, like about that much of the matzah, and have that in mind, because it's really after Pesach is started, that's when the kabbalistic leverage is more available. So that's just my request is those that have a nice early Seder, revisit the matzah thing with a blessing and with your intention to nullify as much ego as we can this year. Everybody good?
Amen.
Very good.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
You guys, I wish you a wonderful,
you.
wonderful Shabbat.
Yeah.
Beautiful Pesach, beautiful Seders. We won't be here learning until I think Chol Moed. So enjoy, and it's such a privilege to continue learning with you guys.
Thank
Okay,
you.
So
So much.
Questions, Rabbi?
next week? Nothing
Cantor?
next week?
I don't believe. No, we're not learning next week.
It's the second day of
Are you still
Passover.
there? Do you know when the next class is that we have?
The 23rd, you said.
Not till the 20th.
23rd.
That's right, because the 9th is no good.
Okay.
16th is
Yeah,
Yeah.
23rd, I think it's the next class.
Right.
We're gonna work on
So-
having like a Wednesday something. So maybe we'll do some Tanya. We'll find another time during then. That's too long. So Bli Neder, we'll send something out on a Wednesday. That'll probably work.
Can we maybe do like a Parsha class or something?
Ooh, Joey. Ooh.
I'm just saying, you know.
No, it sounds good.
You know, I mean, I've been studying the Lachut Seres, you know, with the other rabbis. So it's really, it would be right on if we could, Cantor, if you're into it.
Yeah, I'd like to do that. Let me look at the days and see what works best. I'll send it out. I'd like to do all.
Okay, great, good.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sei gesund. Be well.
Gesei gesund.
Bye.
Thank you.
Everyone,
Thank you.
thank you.
Yeah.
Bye.
God bless.
Bye. Bye-bye, everybody. Have a good Passover.
Have a good
You too.
Passover.
Stay
Dan,
well.
God bless. Stay well. Rick, you still there?
I'm still here. Why?
I'm
I don't know. You don't want to go away?
End meeting. Okay, I'm ending the meeting.
Okay.
Okay. And meeting ended.
Everybody.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye. Take care, guys.